Elba, engaged learning of the Bible with application. All People's Church, Wednesday nights. We are in the Psalms. Part 2 last week was part 1 of the Psalms. And if you want to go ahead and grab the QR code, if you've not done so already, we'll start with questions for investigation. I'm happy to report I have 1 page of notes tonight. So hopefully I don't go quite as long as I did last time. I think every time we've been in under 8:30, which is my ultimate outside goal. 8 to 8:15 is kind of what I like to be in, but anyway. But hopefully you got some things last week, yeah? About the Psalms. There's a lot there. And so we'll continue with that and learn a few more things tonight. You know, we could spend a year in the Psalms, right? There's 150. You could easily do 3 per week, and that'd be a whole year. And I just don't think that that's what we're supposed to do. I want to zoom out a little bit, give you some tidbits, and let you read it for yourself and apply those things. But at any rate, here we go with questions for investigation for tonight. First question. Which of the following is not a typical component of a psalm superscription? Superscription, the little part in before the psalm. Some of the psalms have that. And they have parts, component parts. Which of the following is not a component part? Whom it is to or for, the date of composition, the author, and the purpose or historical context. Now, you read several psalms for this week that had superscriptions. What did they have in that superscription, and what did they not have? All right. 92% say date of composition is what they don't have. So we'll see if that is correct. Next question. Psalms that focus on the theme of kingship are known as what? Enthronement psalms, crown psalms, royal psalms, monarchy psalms. Now, obviously, this is not something that you would have known by reading your reading. So, sorry about it. (60-40), 64-36, royal psalms and enthronement psalms. We'll find out in just a moment what that answer is. And finally, for tonight, the word used in the Psalms to indicate a time to pause and reflect. What word indicates that? Hallelujah, maskil, or Selah. All right, and 100% of people say Selah is the word used to indicate pausing and reflecting. Here we go. The topic tonight is more about the Psalms. Okay, this is week 2 of 3. I think I'm going to take 3 weeks total, and I'm just going to give you some more. So, starting with the superscriptions. Not every psalm, but several psalms have a superscription, that is a little bit of text that precedes the psalm itself. Whether that was written by the psalmist or added later, it's possible that those little superscriptions are added later. It's a classification. It's a here's what this is, right? You can think of a librarian that would do that. But the interesting thing, well, I guess it's interesting to me, about these superscriptions is that there are 5 parts to the superscription. And they're all optional. But they are 5 specific parts, and they go in a particular order. Generally, they're going to all come in the same order. Now, you might only have 3 of the 5 parts, or you might have part 1, part 3, and part 5. Or you might have part 2 and part 4. Or you might have nothing, right? Many of the Psalms have no superscription. Or you could have all 5 parts, okay? But these are the parts. First is whom it is to or for. So you'll see a lot of times, to the chief musician. That would come first. You're never going to see to the chief musician later, after it says something. It never says a psalm of David to the chief musician. It always says to the chief musician, a psalm of David. It goes in that order. Okay. So whom it's to. Part 2 is how it should be played or sung. In other words, what instruments or what tune. Of course, we wouldn't know the tune, but they're telling that person that's going to play it, this is the tune we want to play. These are the instruments to use to accompany this psalm. That kind of thing goes in the second slot. The third slot is the genre, which generally will be the psalm. It'll say a psalm, right? And again, not all the psalms have a superscription, so some of them don't say psalm, right? They all say Psalm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But that's added later. The first one, second one. But not all of them say a psalm of David, for example. But some of them will. But that part that says a psalm, there are other designations in that genre category. A shiggaion, a miktam, okay? A miktam of whoever, a shiggaion of David. And then the fourth slot is the author. So many times, again, a psalm of David. Now, you really need a New King James or something more toward the literal side to pick up this order. Because for example, the Bible that I have tonight, which is a Holman Christian Standard Bible, it's a little bit more dynamic. And what they'll do is they'll just kind of reword that. So it might say a Davidic psalm. Well, by doing that, it still means the same thing, right? But by translating it that way, they messed up the order. Because it's a psalm of David. Slot 3, slot 4. Okay. And then finally, there is a possibility of the fifth slot, which is the purpose or historical context for what's going on. And so we'll see all of these here now as we go through. So we'll look through several. Let's turn now to Psalm 1, okay? And you can just flip through. We're going to go very quickly here and read through several superscriptions. We'll go very quickly here, starting at Psalm 1 and going on. And we see in Psalm 1, there is no superscription, 0 elements. Go to Psalm 2, there is no superscription, okay? None of the 5 elements are present. The first psalm with a superscription is Psalm 3. And it says, a psalm of David when he fled from his son Absalom. Which parts are present of the 5 parts? 3, 4, and 5. That's right. It doesn't say to the such and such, right? It doesn't say, how you're supposed to do it. But it says it's a psalm. It says it's by David. And it gives the historical context when he fled from his son Absalom. Now, if you have a historical context there, knowing the historical context can add a lot to your psalm reading experience, right? Because let's read a little bit of this psalm. Lord, how my foes increase. There are many who attack me. Many say about me, there is no help for him in God. Selah. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head. Okay, et cetera, et cetera. We can tell that this is a petition psalm. A petition for rescue, okay? It's what we would normally refer to as a lament psalm. And we can tell that David is in a state of mind of it's not his best day. But why is it not his best day? And here we see he was fleeing from his son Absalom. So he's got a son who's rebellious, who's on his tail and trying to take the kingdom from him. There's all kinds of backstory here that adds to, again, your psalm reading experience if you know that historical context. All right, keep going. Psalm 4 begins, for the choir director with stringed instruments, a Davidic psalm. That's the way mine reads. What is it really? For the choir director, does yours say chief musician? Okay. By the way, this is a side note. That is my favorite biblical title. You know, there is no title in the Bible for a worship leader. It's the chief musician. I'm into biblical titles, and that's one. The chief musician. I'd much rather be called the chief musician than the worship leader, just because it's a biblical title. Anyway, just throwing that out there. With stringed instruments. What does your translation say? Okay. So that's the how. And then, in other words, that's part 2. That's slot 2. And then mine says a Davidic psalm, but it really should say a psalm of David, because the psalm part is slot 3 and the David is part 4. Okay, Psalm 5. For the choir director with the flutes, psalm of David. First 4 slots are filled. The historic context, not part of it. Psalm 6, for the choir director with stringed instruments. That's part 1, part 2. According to Sheminith, what does your translation say there? On an 8-string harp. Okay, that's a guess at what that means, that Sheminith. Okay. But again, the person who had this in the first generation of his writing would have known how to, if I can say it this way, perform this psalm, because they would know what that word meant. And then again, a psalm of David. First 4 slots are filled there, not the 5th slot. Psalm 7, a Shiggaion of David. Stop. What slots are being filled here? 3, 4, and 5. That's right. That's right. A Shiggaion of David. And now the context, which he sang to the Lord concerning the words of Cush, a Benjaminite. Psalm 8, for the choir director. That's slot 1. On the gittith. What does your translation say there? Okay. Instrument of Gath. Okay. So again, that's slot 2. How to play the thing. And then a psalm of David. Slots 3 and 4. Go to Psalm 9. For the choir director, according to Muth-Laban. In Psalm 9, for the choir director, or in other words, to the chief musician, according to Muth-Laban. What does it say? Okay, that is a guess. Death of the Son is a guess as to what Muth-Laban means. My little note in this particular Bible says, when it says Muth-Laban, it says, perhaps a musical term. Okay? Some of these Hebrew words that are obscure and we just are guessing at the meaning. Is it a tune? Is it an instrument? Is it a whatever? Again, the people that had these psalms in the first generation of, hey, I wrote a psalm. Here you go. Why don't you play it and sing it? Okay. They would have understood how to execute that. And then finally, a psalm of David. So again, the first 4 slots of the superscript are being filled there. Skip ahead to Psalm 22. We'll just do a few more of these. Psalm 22. To the chief musician, according to the deer of the dawn. Okay? Likely a tune. We're going to sing this psalm, these words, to the tune of such and such that the person would have had knowledge of. Okay? They would know the tune. So that's why you call it the tune. And then a psalm of David. So again, the first 4 slots are being filled there. Skip to Psalm 38. And it says, a psalm of David for remembrance. What are the slots being filled there? 3, 4, and 5. It's a psalm. That's slot 3. What is it? It's David. That's the author. And then for remembrance. That's the historical, and not historical in this case, but the context, the purpose or context of the psalm. It's for remembrance. Remembrance of what? Well, you got to read the psalm to find out, right? Okay. Two more. Let's go to Psalm 56. And now we're really going to get the full picture here. Psalm 56, which is one you read for this week. It says to the chief musician, according to a silent dove far away. That's the way mine reads. Okay. How does yours read? A distant land. Okay, yeah. Okay. Possibly a tune. This is the tune you're going to sing. You're going to apply the words of this psalm, but you're going to sing this particular tune about the silent dove, whatever. We don't know what it is, but they would have. Then, a miktam of David. Miktam is the genre, just like psalm, but it's miktam. Now, what's a miktam? I'll tell you in just a second. A miktam occurs in 6 psalms. Its meaning is difficult to determine. Okay, Hebrew root comes from which the form is derived, may mean cover, secret, or inscribe. Most likely a musical term. Its precise relationship with music is uncertain. Okay, so we don't know exactly, but it's a miktam of David as opposed to a psalm of David. All right, and then, so, to the choir director, that's slot 1. According to silent dove far away, slot 2. And miktam is the slot 3, the genre. It's David, that's the author, that's slot 4. The last slot is the historical context, which says what? When the Philistines seized him in Gath. So now we know the context of his words here in this psalm. Last one, next one. Psalm 57 has all 5 parts as well. To the choir director, who's it to? No. Then it says, mine says, do not destroy. Okay, again, it's possibly a tune that it would have been sung to. Another miktam, that's slot 3, of David. He's the author, that's slot 4. And the context is when he fled before Saul into the cave. Okay, so that gives you an idea of these superscriptions. They're not just random, they're actually very anti-random. They have an order. You might not have all 5 parts, but they're going to be in order if you do. Great. Next little chunk is the royal psalms. This was one of our questions. The royal psalms, so-called, are psalms that focus on the theme of kingship. Now, I did not include this as part of, obviously, didn't include it as part of our talk last week. I wouldn't consider this to be a separate category of content, like I've listed out the categories of content. The royal psalms could be, it could be proclamation, there could be praise, there could be all of those different things. It could be a cross-section of the categories of content that we talked about last week. But the royal psalms deal with the theme of kingship. Now that could be the human king, like the king of Israel, which half of the time in the psalms would be David. Or it could deal with God as king. Okay, I've listed some on the screen. Psalm numbers that are considered royal psalms. The first line are pretty much sort of unanimously considered royal psalms. The second line is other psalms that some people consider to be part of royal psalms. Okay, so we're talking about, for the recording, 2, 18, 20, 21, 45, 72, 101, 110, 132, and 144. And then many people will include psalms like 93 through 99 also in that category of royal psalms, as well as 46, 47, 87, and 122. Let's take 2 examples, and we'll see one that more deals with the human side of kingship and one that deals more with the God side of kingship. Let's take a look at Psalm 45. Psalm 45 is a royal psalm. The heading in my Bible, which of course is added by the editor, but the heading on my Bible says a royal wedding song. The superscript says to the chief musician, for the choir director is what mine says, according to the lilies, which is probably, again, a tune, a maskil, that is the genre, of the sons of Korah, that's the authors, and then it says a love song, so that gives us a little bit more context. Then the psalm reads this way. I won't read the whole thing, but we'll start in verse 1 to get a sense of a royal psalm dealing with human king. My heart is moved by a noble theme as I recite my verses to the king. My tongue is the pen of a skillful writer. You are the most handsome of men. Grace flows from your lips. Therefore, God has blessed you forever. Mighty warrior, strap your sword at your side. In your majesty and splendor, in your splendor, ride triumphantly in the cause of truth, humility, and justice. May your right hand show your awe-inspiring acts. Your arrows pierce the hearts of the king's enemies. The peoples fall under you. Now, watch in verse 6. We get kind of a change of direction. Your throne, God, is forever and ever. New King James also makes this directed toward God. So as opposed to talking about the earthly king, we have this shift and we're talking to God. By the way, you'll see that kind of a shift pretty often in the Psalms, a change of person. First person, second person, third person. So all of a sudden you'll be talking about he did this and he did that, and then you'll be talking about you do this and you do that. We don't like to do that in our modern songwriting. We like to keep it one or the other. You, vertical, God, or we're talking to each other. He is good. We don't like to mix those in our modern songwriting. The psalmist did it. So anyway, your throne, God, is forever and forever. The scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of justice. You love righteousness and hate wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of joy. Wait a minute now. It seems like we've shifted back. We're talking about a human. Now, going back to verse 6, your throne, God, is forever and forever. The translation note on that says, or, so it could be translated, your throne, God, is forever and ever. Or it could be translated, your divine throne is. Or it could be translated, your throne is God's. So if it's your throne is God's, we could be talking about a human throne that is overseen. God is with you. He's backing you and so forth, right? You would hope that the king of Israel would have the backing of God. And in some cases he did. Okay. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that I really do think this is a human-based king royal psalm. It has references to God, but it's even in this verse that most translations directly address God, it could be translated in a way that has God overseeing the kingship of a human king. All right? So that gives you a little bit of an idea about that. You can read more of that psalm on your own. Let's flip over to Psalm 99. And we will see a clear example of a psalm that has as its theme God's kingship. Psalm 99, verse 1. The Lord reigns. Of course, that's Yahweh. All caps, Lord. The Lord reigns. Let the peoples tremble. He is what? Enthroned. That's his kingship. That's his throne. That's royal psalm talking about God. He is enthroned above the cherubim. Let the earth quake. Yahweh is great in Zion. He is exalted above all the peoples. Let them praise your great and awe-inspiring name. He is holy. See what I just said that? Look at verse 3. Let them praise your great and awe-inspiring name. He is holy. It's this back and forth between second person and third person. It's pretty standard, really, for the Psalms. Let's read a few more verses. The mighty king loves justice. You have established fairness. You have administered justice and righteousness in Jacob. Exalt the Lord our God. Bow and worship at his footstool. He is holy. Moses and Aaron were among his priests. Samuel also was among those calling on his name. They called to Yahweh, and he answered them. He spoke to them in a pillar of cloud. They kept his decrees and the statutes he gave them. Lord our God, you answered them. You were a forgiving God to them, an avenger of their sinful actions. Exalt the Lord our God. Bow and worship at his holy mountain, for the Lord our God is holy. That's a royal psalm with God as the focal point of the kingship. All right, let's then move to our final chunk of this segment before we get to the exercise, which is the word and term Selah. You know this word and term. 100% of you said that it was the word and term that refers to pausing and reflecting on what has just been read, or really should have been sung. Pause and reflect on that. So the idea of meditation, not some Eastern weird stuff, but biblical meditation. Rest, like a musical rest. I know not everybody has a musical background, but when we have notation of music, we have notes and rests. The notes tell you when to play something or when to sing something. The rest tells you when to be quiet. Okay? The Selah is like a rest. Pause. Be quiet. Okay? Particularly for the singer. Because it's also a time where the instruments will come out. Not come out, but they will have their own time where they are playing, and the singing is not happening, but the instrumental music is happening in these gaps. And while the instrumental music is happening, it gives you a chance to pause and reflect on what has been sung. Okay, let's take a look at Psalm 77 as an example of this. Psalm 77 has three Selahs. Okay, so let's take a look. It's Psalm 77. We'll start. Why not with the superscript. To the chief musician, according to Jeduthun. I think most of yours will say to Jeduthun. So then it's of Asaph. So of Asaph he's the author. And it says a psalm. Now in my Bible, psalm is after Asaph, which would be out of order. So maybe that one is, or maybe it's just the translation chose to do it that way. But let's read the psalm, verse 1. I cry aloud to God, and he will hear me. I sought the Lord in my day of trouble. My hands were continually lifted up all night long. I refuse to be comforted. I think of God. I groan. I meditate. My spirit becomes weak. Selah. Let's do a little bit more. You have kept me from closing my eyes. I am troubled and cannot speak. I consider days of old, years long past. At night I remember my music. I meditate in my heart, and my spirit ponders. Will the Lord reject forever and never again show favor? Has his faithful love ceased forever? That's quite a question. Obviously, it's rhetorical, and the answer is no, right? We know that because we have good theology. God's love has not ceased forever. But the psalmist is asking this question. Has his faithful love ceased forever? Because he feels a little bit alone right now for whatever reason. Is his promise at an end for all generations? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Selah. The reason I picked this psalm to bring out this idea of Selah is I think we usually think of Selah as like, praise the Lord, he's done all these great things. Let's meditate on that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's also true. There will be a Selah on some praise psalms where we get to meditate on the goodness of God and meditate on the things he's done, right? So that's good. I think that's, when I think Selah, I think that. Meditate on the great things he's done. This is weird. Selah, meditate on these rhetorical questions whose answers are no. And there's a little bit of a Job piece here. Going back to the book of Job. God is okay with our questions. He's not bothered. When we sincerely cry out to the Lord, now if we're crying out to others and complaining about a bunch of stuff, he's probably not happy about that. But if we come to him and we say, God, it feels like you're nowhere to be found. What's going on? He can handle that. He's not gonna get mad at you because you're asking that kind of question when it feels like he's not around. So we actually get to meditate on, has his faithful love ceased forever? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Now here's what's cool about that. The more you meditate on that, the more you realize the answer is no. Right? When I meditate on, has his faithful love ceased forever? It's going to cause me to go right back to the other Psalms where I say, here's all the stuff he's done. He's a faithful God. He's not going to stop being faithful. Right? So anyway, I just wanted to bring that out because I thought that was not in what we normally think of as the function of a Selah. All right. Okay, so that's it for that segment. We'll go to the exercise, and we're going to do something kind of special today. I'm going to invite Sheldon up, and I want to go, I think it was Psalm 46, wasn't it? Is that the one I told you? Yeah. Great. I've got it pulled up here. You can, here's your mic. You can use this, or you can use your own translation if you want, but whatever, but it's there if you want it. So Sheldon and I have not practiced this, but he's going to sing Psalm 46. So you can read along, and there's no melody. He's going to make up the melody. I'm going to accompany. And when we get to the Selah, he's going to stop singing. I'm going to play, and you guys can meditate on what we just heard. Okay? And then we do this. I think there's how many? 1, 2. There's 3 Selahs here. So we'll do this 3 times. I have no idea what melody he's going to sing or anything like that. So we'll just kind of try to follow, stay together. But he'll sing the words. You'll think about the words. And then when we have Selah, I will continue to play. And you can meditate on what we just heard.
Had to get the coffee shop vibe. Just kidding.
I won't be afraid when the storms come around me, for God is my refuge and my help. I won't be afraid when I am surrounded. He is my strong tower. 'Cause your presence presence, Lord. Come and see the works of the Lord. And come and see the strength of his hand. And come and see his greatness and declare to all the earth that he is good and he is great. So come and see the works of the Lord. Oh, come and see the strength of his hand, and know that he is good, and know that he is great, and go and tell the world he's worthy to be praised. Come and see the works of his hands. Oh, come and see his strength, and know that he is good, and know that he is great. Go and tell the world he's worthy to be praised. He's worthy to be praised. Go and tell the world that he's worthy to be praised. He's worthy to be praised. Amen.
Okay, cool? Cool. All right, so that's what a psalm's supposed to be like. Number one, it's supposed to be sung. Number two, when you get to the Selah, you're supposed to pause and reflect. All right? Good. Let's go to the second look. Second look tonight, I want to talk about imprecatory psalms, also known as psalms of imprecation. To imprecate is to call down a curse. Basically, this is what I was talking about last week when I gave the category of petition. I'm petitioning the Lord, I'm praying to the Lord, I'm asking him for something, but the thing I'm asking from him is judgment. I gave the subcategory of I'm asking him for rescue, I'm asking him for judgment, whatever. And judgment and justice is very closely tied in with the imprecatory psalms. Now, the word judgment is not quite as strong as imprecation. I think we can ask for judgment and not be calling down a curse. It's a stronger term here, this imprecatory psalms. But we have some psalms in the Bible where the psalmist is calling down curses on his enemies. He's saying, God, these people are my enemies and your enemies. Deal with them. And it's stark. So let's take a look at a couple of these. You read these in your reading for this week. Psalm 58 and then Psalm 59. Let's take a look at those two. Psalm 58, I'm going to read from the beginning. We're really going to concentrate on verses 6 through 8, but let's set it up, okay? Psalm 58, my heading in my Bible says a cry against injustice, okay? The superscription says for the choir director, to the chief musician, do not destroy, probably the tune, a miktam of David. And here's what it says, verse 1. Do you really speak righteously, you mighty ones? Do you judge people fairly? No, you practice injustice in your hearts. So David is speaking to the enemy. The psalm is directed toward the enemy. No, you practice injustice in your hearts. With your hands you weigh out violence in the land. The wicked go astray from the womb. Liars err from birth. They have venom like the venom of a snake, like the deaf cobra that stops up its ears, that does not listen to the sound of the charmers who skillfully weave spells. Now watch verses 6 through 8. We get the imprecation. In other words, the petition for the judgment of God. God knocked the teeth out of their mouths. Woof. Lord, tear out the young lion's fangs. They will vanish like water that flows by. They will aim their useless arrows like a slug that moves along in slime, like a woman's miscarried child. They will not see the sun. Them's fighting words. That's heavy. Okay, let's go ahead and read the rest of it. There's only a little bit more. Before your pots can feel the heat of the thorns, whether green or burning, he will sweep them away. The righteous one will rejoice when he sees the retribution. Are we supposed to, this is getting into the practical application tonight, but preview. Are we supposed to rejoice when we see retribution against the enemies of God? It's a trick question. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss that. You know, what's the difference between Old Testament and New Testament? How is our approach different? That's going to be the application for tonight. He will wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. Then people will say, yes, there is a reward for the righteous. There is a God who judges on earth. Notice that last part. Reward for the righteous. There's a God who judges on the earth. At the end of the day, this is one point I wanted to make. The psalmist, when in these passages of calling for judgment, I've seen it many times where they bring it back to for God's sake. Okay, we'll see that in the very next psalm. Let's read it now. Psalm 59. I'll skip the superscription. Let's go to verse 1. Deliver me from my enemies, my God. Protect me from those who rise up against me. Deliver me from those who practice sin. Save me from the men of bloodshed. Lord, look, they set an ambush for me. Powerful men attack me, but not because of any sin or rebellion of mine, for no fault of mine. And they run and take up position, awake to help me and take notice. Lord God of hosts, you are the God of Israel. Rise up to punish all the nations. Do not show grace to any wicked traitors. Selah. Okay. Psalm 59. Let's go to verse 11. Let's read 11 through 13. This is where it really gets down to the nitty-gritty. This is the psalmist asking God, do not kill them, otherwise my people will forget. By your power, instead of killing them, do this. Make them homeless wanderers and bring them down, Lord, our shield. For the sin of their mouths and the words of their lips, let them be caught in their pride. They utter curses and lies. Consume them in rage. Consume them until they are gone. Then people will know throughout the earth, what? That I, the psalmist, was right in this matter. Is that what it says? No. That's what I love about this part. You'll see this over and over when you see the psalmist petitioning God for his judgment, even in the Old Testament context. When you see that, many times it will say, for your sake, do it. Not for mine, for your sake. I love that. So here it is, verse 13. Again, consume them in rage, consume them until they're gone. Then people will know throughout the earth, not that I was right about whatever, but that God rules over Jacob. Yeah? Okay, one more. This one didn't come from your reading this week, but take a look at Psalm 137. 137. Psalm 137. Now, I'll just tell you this. This is not in my notes, but I'm just going to tell you. At the beginning, I have it listed as proclamation. So categories, right? Starting in verse 7, I have it listed as petition. So in this particular Bible, I've gone through and I put the little word next. What is it? What is it saying, right? So I have that. So later at the tail end of this psalm, we're going to get to the petition. But notice first, your Bible probably has a heading on this psalm. It should say something like, Lament of the Exiles. Do you see anything like that? No? Your Bible doesn't have a heading on that? It doesn't say that, but what does it say? In a foreign land. Captivity. Okay, so the point is this. This is one of the latest psalms, might be the latest psalm to be written. Like 400 BC. After, Moses, way back in, we talked about the range of how over a millennium that the Psalms were compiled, right? All the way back to Moses wrote Psalm 90. This is one of the last Psalms to be written after the exile and after the return, right? Return of the Jews to Jerusalem from Babylon after the exile. This is written after that. So very late. And so anyway, that's the context. Now, it doesn't say that in a superscript or anything, but that is the context, all right? And you'll see it when you read the psalm. So let's read it, and then we're going to pay attention to the part about the imprecation. Here we go. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. There we hung up our lyres on the poplar trees, for our captors there asked us for songs, and our tormentors for rejoicing. Sing us one of the songs of Zion. And we said, we're not going to sing songs about Zion. Look at us. We're over here in this foreign land, and y'all have taken us captive. How can we sing about Zion, right? I just paraphrased. Okay, verse 4. How can we sing the Lord's song on foreign soil? If I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. May my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not exalt Jerusalem as my greatest joy. Verse 7. Here's the petition. Remember, Lord, what the Edomites said that day at Jerusalem. Destroy it, down to its foundations. Daughter Babylon, doomed to destruction. Happy is the one who pays you back what you have done to us. Happy is he who takes your little ones and dashes them against the rocks. Woof. The Edomites dashed the Jews' little ones against the rocks. And they're coming back full eye for an eye and saying how great it would be to dash the little ones of the Edomites and the Babylonians against the rocks. That's a big woof there. Okay? We don't typically have a grid for that in our New Covenant theology. So now the question is, should we have a grid for that? What do we do with psalms like this? Are imprecatory prayers appropriate for today? Now, obviously, it's appropriate for us to read these psalms because they're in the Bible. Read them and get their context and draw out of them what lessons there are to be drawn. But the question is this the way we are supposed to pray today against our enemies? And is it a blanket no? Is it a blanket yes? Or is there a yes but? Or is there a no but? And I'm not answering it, you are. Okay? Read those verses, Matthew 5, 43 to 45, Matthew 7, 1 to 2, and Romans 12, 14. That's New Testament. It'll give you a little context of some things that feel the opposite of what we just read. And then I'm going to have you really discuss and kind of duke it out over what do we do with this in New Covenant theology and in New Covenant living. Try it. Read out loud first. All right, how we doing? It's good? Good discussion? All right, who's got a couple that you want to share with the whole group? We think we have the answer on whether we're supposed to do this or not and how. Matt. Okay. Yeah, pray that they become a child of light. Yeah, we're supposed to pray. Yeah, pray for our enemies. Pray for unbelievers, that they would become believers. Every unbeliever who is alive has the potential to become a believer. Not all will. In fact, I would say most won't. Why do I say most won't? Because broad is the way and narrow is the way. So if narrow is the way, to me, that says maximum of 49% of people are going to make it, okay? But every unbeliever has the potential to be a believer until they die. And so our default should be to pray toward that end. Yes, I agree with that, all right? So what I just heard and what I just re-articulated is, generally speaking, we do not pray curses down on our enemies, be they believers or unbelievers. Okay? All right. Who else has some little bits to add to that? I think there's more. Yeah. Yeah, the Lord rebuke you. Yes. So, very good point. So, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, right? So, it's not the people who ultimately are our enemies, but the spirits behind those people. Now, when the peoples partner with those spirits, then they kind of also become our enemies. But, again, the default is love your enemies, bless those who persecute you, bless, do not curse. That's the default. Okay, what other tidbits can we add to that? Right. 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 Heaping coals of fire. Blessing. Yes, absolutely. Good. So let me give a little extra slice here on this. This is all good. I think it's pretty much hitting the target. I like the word if. You know, I don't know. I don't know what person X. I don't know person X's heart. I don't know what it's gonna become. You know. And the Lord does. So, Lord, you know, and I don't know. This person who has hurt me, right, from within the church, from without the church, right? It's an enemy, unbeliever person, evil person, you know, murderer, whatever. There's been a crime committed against me, or like a church hurt type situation, right? Either way. Lord, you know, it could be a salvation issue. It could be a non-salvation issue. This is a Christian person. They really are Christian, but they've hurt you in some way. Whether or not they even know it, maybe they do know it. But you're forgiving them. Whether or not you forgive them, they're going to make it on Judgment Day. They're going to be a thumbs up. And so now my mode of forgiveness is, Lord, you know, if they're yours, if they're, you know, even if they never own up to it, even if they never realize that they hurt me, right? I let that go. I forgive, help me, and you take care of it in your way, whatever way that is. That would be the kind of a prayer I would pray for that. And then worldly enemy, evil, God, you know, if there's any way that that person can come to know the truth and actually receive it and say yes and be changed, I want that for that person. And so I'm praying that. God, have mercy if they will have it. But if they won't, take care of it. Take care of it. But that's an if. And that way it's not on me. It's an if. Because he knows the answer to the if. And so now we're praying in line with whatever is true and real. On God's end of things and on the person's end of things. All right? Is that cool? We good with that? Okay. All right. Celebration of knowledge. If you're not there, get back in with the QR code, or you can walk to the front and read the numbers off to the people in the back. All right, here we go. Question number 1 was, which of the following is not a typical component of a psalm superscription? Whom it is to or for, the date of composition, the author, and the purpose or historical context. Which one is not part of the superscriptions? %100 of people say date of composition is not part of the superscription. Unfortunately, that's wrong. No, I'm kidding. That is true. Date of composition is not part of the superscription. Very good. All right. Question number 2. Psalms that focus on the theme of kingship are known as enthronement psalms, crown psalms, royal psalms, monarchy psalms. There is no such thing as a crown royal psalm, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay. 100% of people say royal psalms. The correct answer is royal psalms. All right, that's what we call them. Last question of the night. The word used in Psalms to indicate a time to pause and reflect is hallelujah, maskil, or Selah. I believe 100% of people said Selah the first time. I would be shocked if it's any different the second time. The answer is Selah. Very good. All right. Personal study goal, read the rest of the Psalms. So we're talking about book 4, book 5. This is 90 through 150. You got 119 in there, which is huge. A lot of the rest of them are pretty small. It's a goal.
Hey, this is Pastor Jeff from All People's Church, and we thank you for taking the time to tune in to one of our messages. We encourage you to like and subscribe our YouTube page so that you'll be notified every time we post new content. We pray that the Lord blesses you through what we're doing.